She could have abandoned you, lied to you, or betrayed your trust. You may have tried to put yourself back together and find peace without saying goodbye for weeks or months. The chaos she left behind. But then she suddenly reappears with a message, whether it's a phone call or just an unplanned visit that brings back memories. Why does she choose to return? After all this time, is it regret, remorse, or something else? Most importantly, how do you respond in a way that conforms to the strength you've acquired? And we're deconstructing this perplexing concept in today's video situation, examining the psychology of her actions, and, more importantly, how can you tackle this circumstance with strength, clarity, and a dash of ageless Stoic wisdom? Initially, we have to understand why she caused you pain. Does she cause you pain? This question keeps coming up. At your mind, causing a mixture of bewilderment and suffering, was it her a persistent fear of commitment, immaturity, or even something outside factors include the uncontrollable questions that keep coming back to you as though you knew the answer? Impact the past in some manner, but the reality is that knowing her intentions could not provide you the peace you require, and more significantly, it doesn't justify her. But it could provide insight as a starting point for your own growth. Take a moment to consider what she did, but don't let it to define your value, since when someone hurts us, their personal problems usually take precedence over who it's not moral, but this clarifies a fundamental idea of her stoicism might have been an indication that she wasn't prepared to confront her own worries or fears. That she projected them upon you after leaving you is therefore odd. She reappears in your life out of the blue, and the reason is, time and distance often bring clarity, not just for you, but for her as well. May appreciate the stability, kindness, and strength you provided her, especially when she addresses the hard realities of relationships where we have little control over the conduct of others, and the only thing we can control is our response to them. She made her own choices, and your worth was never determined by how she treated you. Her compensation may not always be. It can be the outcome of her realizing what she lost, not an indication of her transformation. As a Stoic, if she has hurt you in the past, ask herself if she has changed, or if she's only looking for solace in the familiarity you provided, then accept her. Don't return just because it satisfies a need. Do so only if it supports your values and personal development. Don't let her actions or reaction control you. Instead, keep your dignity intact. Is the cornerstone of enduring peace. Even though forgiveness is an admirable gesture, it's acceptable that she wounded you, even though you'll never fully understand why. Should concentrate on the lessons you can get from her behavior. What did this experience teach you? In addition to regaining control, thinking back on these experiences teaches you to value boundaries and your own fortitude, but also make sure that the next chapter of your tale is one of bravery and wisdom. When she returns, she probably will confront the issue clearly rather than with resentment or enthusiasm. And you have come up with the important question, is she the number two? Bringing her back to explain why the answer is rarely straightforward and is typically unexpected, since it's easy to assume that someone who has wronged you is coming back out of love, regret, or a renewed appreciation for you. If she contacts you months after splitting things off and asks how you've been in a playful text message, seems innocent, but if you look more closely, it can mean that she has seen your value. Perhaps after losing you, she's just making sure the door is still open. She may have good intentions, or she may have only self-interest in mind, and motivated more by her desires than your own, you may discover that she is the focus more than you. Perhaps she is having a hard time dealing with her loneliness and is going through a regretting the way things went, or simply needing to know that you're still available as a buffer against her uncertainties. Is this someone trying to ease their own suffering? Or does it seem in this case, Stoicism can benefit you because it teaches? Without making any assumptions, we should watch the scenario when she gets back. Instead, look for hidden meanings in her actions or try to play detective. Let go of the need for closure and greet her reappearance with interest instead of affection. Epictetus famously said that our suffering is not caused by the events in our lives, but from our evaluation of them. If her return isn't driven by a sincere desire to take back, have faith that it's probably not about you, and that's okay since you are worthless. Depending on her acknowledgement, think about whether she genuinely sees my worth or whether she's only trying to fill a void in her life because her homecoming is an external event. Occurs, and you are completely in charge of how you react to it. It may be tempting to let your emotions take over, and you could experience excitement, hope, or even exonerated. But what do you do as you are responsible for keeping your peace? Instead, watch and remember that you don't have to push her away or rush to open the door for her. Take a step back and evaluate her behavior based on her words. She is demonstrating responsibility, maturity, and a desire to mend the harm. You can decide if she is to blame for this or if her needs come before yours. But let it come from a place of strength instead of hopelessness, and keep in mind that only just because someone returns doesn't mean they belong in your life. Her actions are motivated by love or selfishness, thus you should take a stoic stance toward keep your cool, be calm, and never underestimate your own worth because someone stole. You took it for granted in the first place, and your silence had a greater impact on her, more than words could possibly convey, by refusing to beg or react to you emotionally. Transmitted a message that is beyond all justification and discussion. By putting aside, and you gave her the strength and self-control that few people have by making room for her. Couldn't ignore the quiet as she started to think and accept. She had allowed herself to be deprived of what the Stoics refer to as apatha, or the capacity to be, unaffected by outside events. This isn't about being cold or callous, but rather about controlling your emotions and concentrating on the things you can control. But by letting her go, you demonstrated that your value is independent of her approval, and that consider your emotional and mental health to be non-negotiable. Consider a man who was loyal to a woman who ultimately hurt him, maybe by ignoring or robbing him. At first I wanted to answer by calling her to ask for clarification and create a fight. Rather, he exhibits extreme silence when someone is consistently. Their presence is almost imperceptible, like white noise when they are chasing you. But when that presence abruptly ends, the silence is deafening, and he didn't answer or reach out, but instead he just backed off out of respect for himself at that time. Inward, focusing his energies on reaching his goals, enhancing his health, and finding peace in his. Meanwhile, instead of acting aggressively in his own organization, he was growing stronger. She gradually realized his absence and the repercussions of his silence, began to consider her decisions in order to determine his worth, and feel the loss of someone who had previously provided her with stability and support when she finally returned. Not because he pleaded with her or forced her to, but rather, she came back because of what he did, not because of what he said, because the gap he made was too great to ignore. Actions, or more specifically, his self-control. So remember that your silence isn't just the absence of words, it's a declaration of your integrity and that you won't sacrifice your peace of mind for someone who doesn't value you. And it is not because you plead that she will realize what she lost, but rather because you offered her the gift of room to do so. The capacity for her to return and no one to blame is the silent power that Stoicism teaches us to cultivate. Could you tell me the fourth number? She has since undergone significant alteration, but not necessarily in the way or as quickly as we want her to return after upsetting you. It's common to feel a range of emotions such as bewilderment, hope, and maybe even a hint of anger or resentment. But before you act, pause and take a moment to consider why she is returning at this time. Is it because she genuinely regrets what she did and has taken steps to grow up? Or is she simply seeking comfort or familiarity at a time when she is vulnerable? Return raises problems, and it is your responsibility to think about it rather than just reply. Simple words allow anyone to express, I've changed, or I'm sorry, but real improvement is rarely communicated. Instead, it is shown by proximity. Observing her actions as well as the words she uses to try to win you back is she taking responsibility for the pain she created, or is she denying her mistakes, wishing time had forgotten them? But more importantly, does her behavior show that she truly values and respects you, or does this happen frequently? Let's say she left because she didn't neglect your feelings or put you first, but now she's back and promises to phrases such as, I've realized what I lost, may appear sincere, but she's really demonstrating change by giving you more consideration, honoring your boundaries, or offering you emotional stability. Or is she still avoiding a compatibility by utilizing her charm and familiarity with why? Again, in Epictetus, the Stoics offer ageless advice for issues, such as these. First, consider who you would be. Then behave as you. You should think about what you want in a marriage. Do you want someone who consistently shows that a person is emotionally, politely, and consistently safe? Then check her behavior to see if it suggests that she is still trapped in antiquated traditions, or whether her reappearance at a specific time signifies someone who isn't, when she is most at risk, such during a breakup or a period of personal hardship, because she has become a better version of herself and is ready to offer something better, or is, when she apologizes, for instance, she is attempting to alleviate the pain in her own life, but immediately turns the conversation to her personal problems, which could mean that she is more preoccupied with herself than real growth would mean, not only admitting her mistakes, but also consistently fixing the harm, demonstrating by her actions that she values your needs and well-being. For instance, she hurt you by, you will be able to determine whether she has changed from her previous emotional insensitivity. To ascertain how she communicates and finds time for you, fulfills your emotional requirements. But if she returns to her former behaviors of disregarding your limits and disobeying her promises, it demonstrates that her if is motivated by pragmatic considerations rather than sincere personal development. A Stoic attitude is maintaining your composure and avoiding letting your feelings influence your reconciliation and forgiveness are two distinct things. But you can forgive. The goal of reconciliation is to forgive her for the hurt she caused you without asking her to return. Of the grudges, although trust is another element that must be acquired instead of, if her presence causes you to feel more confused, unstable, or hurt, you owe it to her to put your health first, because, as the Stoics always remind us, whether or not she has changed is not the most important thing. Your first responsibility is to make sure she is at ease. However, if her return makes you feel more relaxed and grown up, Seneca wrote, remember that you are free to choose, so take your time and watch what she does, and put your peace first. Change is rare, but it's obvious when it occurs. Until then, keep your cool like the Stoics did and allow her to demonstrate via persistent efforts that she deserves a place in your life. Once more, we face further challenges in the sixth factor is how strongly you react to someone who has wronged you. It gives you back what you expected. You should think about me first rather than why she's back, since it's simple to get sucked. into the emotional quagmire, but in actuality, your reaction is much more significant than her actions. Maybe you've been proven right, or perhaps you're still harboring resentment or acting in an offensive manner. Emotionally, by shouting at her to try to make her feel terrible, or even accepting her return without reservation, merely exposes you to her behavior. But a Stoic man may comprehend more clearly, pause to think, breathe, and consider your options, take charge of the situation, and remember that, as the Stoic, the philosopher Epictetus is credited with saying that your response is more important than your circumstances. What most in this situation and your power lies not in her return, but in your ability to react rationally and with control, rather than letting your emotions run you over. If she left you when you were at your lowest and then returned, for example, since she came back now after everything, your first reaction can be one of resentment, or perhaps there's a part of you still yearns for her and is inclined to go past the hurt and immediately re-engage. Natural reactions, but neither would be suitable for a grounded, self-respecting man. Instead, take a moment to clearly and calmly think about going back, and think about whether a return aligns with the guidelines and restrictions you have set. It's difficult to predict how this can impact your mental well-being, but what matters is that this isn't. It is completely up to you if you decide to allow her back into your life. Or unintentionally, like failing to return her text or phone call. Don't react too quickly. Take a moment to think about the issue and respond when you're ready, not when she is. Expects it. You're showing her that you value yourself by doing this. Initially, a calm, composed response shows her that you're different. "I need time to think," she simply wrote to the person she left behind. About this could demonstrate courage and maturity by enabling her and you to understand that you cherish your peace and will not make snap decisions. This poetry conveys a strong statement, demonstrating to her that you've matured and are no longer in need of drama or outside validation, kind of man who would deteriorate under her pressure or contract upon her return rejection. Your composed or quiet reaction says a lot and demonstrates that your value is based on your principles, not on what she did, if you want to go back. Establish limits, communicate openly about them, and touch with clarity and grace. Your demands and expectations, but remember that your answer, not hers, determines the flow of events. A Stoic man acts deliberately rather than impulsivity fs. So show off your strength in your response. 6. Whether her return presents a chance to make peace or just a "what is she really trying to accomplish when someone has harmed you?" chapter to end with honor. Returns. It usually comes with a bouquet of words of apology, change, and promises. Her words can be, "I've changed," or "I see now what I lost." To make up for the void created by her behavior, these comments can be enticing. They evoke strong feelings, evoke recollections, and give hope that although things might get back to normal, in practice, worries are simple, and everyone is free to express their opinions if you want to hear them. But in practice, it takes time, effort, and commitment to transform. The question is not what she claims, but do you think she is actually trying to fix what she is doing based on her behavior? Happened wrong? Or are you going to continue acting as though her apologies will erase the harm she caused? So give this some serious thought. Let's look at the real world, since her reaction will show her motivations. In the days or weeks that followed, for example, she may have abruptly ended things, leaving you feeling unprepared and doubting your value. You were trying to re-establish your life and emotional stability in the months that followed, when she suddenly approached you, apologizing verbally, and assured you that she had matured and realized her mistakes. It's acceptable to feel a range of emotions, including relief that she values you, rage at the hurt she caused, and perhaps even hope for a new beginning. Yet emotions can impair judgment, even in cases when they are. The famous phrase from real Marcus Aurelius states that time is a kind of river of passing events, and no sooner is one thing emerged before being carried away and replaced by another. As the Stoics taught, we must exercise patience and refrain from making fast decisions or judgments based only on. The Stoics advise us to let time pass when she states that transient feelings have changed. Let her to illustrate, since time is the last revealing element that distinguishes those who behave impetuously or selfishly from those who behave with good intentions. You should prioritize safeguarding your peace of mind, since it is valuable. You notice her behavior not just both right after her return and over an extended period of time. Does she have the humility to own the harm she did without downplaying it or offering an explanation? Or does she expect that things will return to normal without properly addressing the pain she inflicted? Thought it was important to maintain your inner peace, which is what your values and self-worth. It's critical to consider what her return shows, whether you are thinking about letting her go because you genuinely think she has changed, or because you didn't recognize what you had, and her behavior will show whether or not she is genuinely interested in repairing the relationship. She won't push you to make decisions before you're ready, and respects your boundaries. Remember that nostalgia can be a factor when you realize that it takes time to rebuild trust. Strong authority that isn't always grounded in reality, as Seneca once said that we endure more suffering in our dreams than in reality. So don't let your view of the present is distorted by your desire for the past. Instead, think about the time to consider whether her return is consistent with your values and beliefs. When someone has wronged you is a delicate process that calls for patience on your part and humility on hers. It's not about attempting to quickly restore what was lost, but rather to gradually construct something stronger based on deference and acknowledging that her behavior should affect your choice, and permitting Stoic principles to remind you that you deserve a committed relationship rather than number 7. Uncertainty in a partnership when words don't always translate into deeds. Think for a moment. Aren't the memories of laughter together what entice you to return? Do you want her back because you genuinely think things will get better? Or is it because you don't think you'll be able to fill the void she left? Are you clinging to an idea of who you thought she would be? Or do you yearn for the person she is now? The silent times when everything appeared to be in order, and you might hold on to the hope that things would go differently this time around, like a Marcus, you understand that happiness is like a warm blanket on a chilly night, and that you don't need anything else. Aurelius once asserts that experiencing a range of emotions is normal, including relief, hope, and vindication when someone who has wronged you attempts to return after. Even while it feels fantastic to have someone value you after they've let you go, she isn't the actual test. Whether her reappearance is a sign of a stronger relationship or a trap is entirely on you and your ability to discern it. Triggered by a fear of starting over, loneliness, or nostalgia, think about this. She left you when you needed her most. Her actions broke you, and her words hurt you. Your self-assurance and her absence forced you to face yourself in ways you never thought to be possible, but now she's at your door saying she knows how valuable you are, and why. Maybe now it's because of your silence, your refusal to pursue her, and your unwavering commitment to rebuilding your identity. Maybe she misses the version of, even though she might have changed or taken you for granted, the reality is, philosopher Epictetus contends that what irritates us is not events, but rather how we perceive things. Thus, her reappearance is not inevitable. You are free to continue where you left off because her return is merely an occurrence. Cannot govern you unless you grant it authority, whether or not she merits another chance. A difficulty. The real question is whether you've strengthened yourself enough. where you have the option of allowing her to come back or moving on. Imagine yourself in this scenario, observing a location that you used to call home but now has broken walls. Given the roof leaks and the unstable foundation, would you relocate? Do you remember how cozy living there was? Or would you first make sure it's being repaired, fortified, and made safe again? And if she's changed, she'll demonstrate it instead of just saying it. Let's examine her time more closely by doing routine behaviors that are in line with the deference and consideration you merit. Her return actually means that you must distance yourself from her, and that is when your Stoic practice becomes crucial. Regardless of whether it's her personal loneliness or even her own, step back from the conclusion and consider the matter objectively. Guilt. Is she coming back because she genuinely wants to get to know you, better future with you, or is she just looking for solace in your comfortable surroundings without having to cope with the... When someone who has harmed you comes back, it's normal to experience a wave of sadness, of emotions, the glimmer of hope, the whisper of affirmation, the charm of a new beginning. But keep in mind that it is your duty to preserve the peace and resilience you have so painstakingly built. You shouldn't try to save or fix someone who has changed for the better. Hopefully, her actions and words will coincide, but if not, you'll find the strength to let her leave, because you know that her approval of you is not what makes you valuable. Before deciding to welcome her back into my life, give it some thought. Because I believe our future together is bright, or am I allowing desire and fear to dictate my decisions? Your dedication to bettering yourself, your inability to reply, and your reticence to pursue her have all been. Don't act on ephemeral displays of self-respect and let your efforts be in vain. Feeling in 8th place and drawing the line without any drama they are not about pushing someone away or exacting revenge, but rather setting the tone. Setting boundaries shows how much you value yourself and how you would like to be treated. After being hurt, you state, either explicitly or implicitly, that you will not remember that. This clarity can be very powerful. Don't tolerate rudeness or inconsistency any longer. Made you feel abruptly unfair or disdainful instead of, you choose to go in a different way and avoid bothering her rather than trying to get closure from her or prove your worth. You didn't let the specifics of what went wrong overwhelm you when you received messages or requests. Instead, you focused on what you worked to become stronger, more self-assured, and capable of self-control. That change is irresistible when she sees that you've grounded yourself and aren't looking for her approval. Established boundaries for your peace and acknowledged your worth, which causes the relationship to suddenly change and causes her to quit searching. Upon observing the individual she left, she perceives someone who has overcome the situation and become even more appreciated because of their ability to get past the pain in this scenario, where a woman ends a relationship. She may have started out driven by fear, displeasure, or even selfishness, anticipating the usual desperate attempt by either you or I to win her back. But instead of keeping quiet, you reply politely, not out of resentment, but rather than simply waiting, you decide to keep yourself calm at that time by create and pursue your passions, surround yourself with uplifting people, and focus on improving your. Looking back at her mental, emotional, and physical health, she doesn't see someone who crumbled under the strain of. She sees someone who has stood up and values themselves in the face of rejection. Rather than out of remorse, she often returns out of poise and self-control. But boundaries are attractive because they are strong, and she is drawn to the strength you have shown. Show that you are not willing to give up your peace or your dignity, even for someone you love deeply. Emotional control of this kind is rare and should be respected. demonstrates your emotional restraint and resistance to external influences as she watches. She may feel appreciated and perhaps intrigued about what changed as a result of this power. It's not because you changed her heart to become so peaceful and resilient. She feels guilty or sorry for you, but she also recognizes your value when she... The question is not just why she comes back, but also how you respond. Do you embrace her return, your life under certain conditions, or do you stop to think about if this is where your boundaries are most crucial, assuming she agrees, because she meets the standards you have set for yourself? To treat you with the respect and integrity you deserve, there could be room to rebuild. Setting limits, though, will enable you to leave if she keeps acting in ways that cause you pain. When she returns after hurting you without regret, it's about the boundaries you set, not just about her. Strength you shown and the peace you maintained by following your principles and putting the discipline that being a beacon of inner strength and self-respect is what Stoicism teaches you, is the main reason why she or anyone else is concerned about boundaries. Are not barriers, but rather a roadmap to help you get the recognition and connections you deserve. You keep your cool and allow your boundaries do the talking, regardless of whether she stays or goes. The ninth protective factor is that the best form of retaliation is your own personal growth. The best course of action is to concentrate on your personal and happiness goals. Growth. If she left you feeling that you wouldn't be able to succeed without her, let her know that you take use of the chance to fortify yourself, not for recognition or revenge, but because you have enough confidence in yourself to not let the actions of others define your worth. About bettering yourself as a present to her instead of performing for her. This is not a demonstration. Imagine that she meets you again. Rather, it is about proving to yourself that you are strong and resilient. Competent, whether by mutual connections with social media or even in unexpected. She observes a change in her communication, self-assurance, and warmth and confidence. It wasn't as clear previously. Perhaps you've been focusing on your emotional and mental well-being by activities that bring you joy, or establishing and achieving goals that are the power of reflection that emits and has a profound impact, as excruciating as her acts may have given you an opportunity to reflect and set limits. You decided how you wanted to rebuild your life and took control of it, thing you could always control when she returned, whether it was by offering an apology, an explanation, or simply Marcus Aurelius believed that being different from him was the best way to get back at him. The Stoics encourage us to turn challenges, even unpleasant ones, into opportunities for growth. Consider this scenario after weeks or months without. She talks to you and observes that you're becoming a better version of yourself, whether it's by going to the gym or pursuing a passion. She can be messaging you about a project or just hanging out with friends and family. Waiting for the individual she left behind, the one who might have objected or begged or made an effort to make things right, she's discovered someone quite different, someone composed, confident, and you shouldn't respond with anger, resentment, or bitterness when you're not connected to her favor. Desperation, but with dignity and poise, as you've outgrown her. Because of your decision, she no longer has the same emotional access to you as she once did. Silence during her absence was a boundary that provided you with something rather than a penalty. Time to think things through and heal, and your life now shows the results of that decision. She may apologize or ask for another chance, but by then, dynamics power. Since you've already accepted your own worth, you've moved on and aren't the one waiting for her approval. Keep in mind that this isn't about harboring resentment or looking for retaliation. Stoicism holds that the power of truth resides in conquering our thoughts, emotions, and actions, in addition to letting go of the things we Although you cannot alter the past or the reasons behind her return, you can keep your identity under control when she does, but let her return if she so chooses. At its core, your development speaks for itself. This is about realizing your value, is not a triumph, but only a reflection of who you have become. You have utilized the when she sees who you have become, she will have a profound epiphany. She used the hurt she caused as fuel for strength and knowledge. Her absence made you stronger rather than weaker. Therefore, when she returns, let's showing her how far you've come is the finest response. Let's think about everything. We've discussed how when someone who has harmed you reappears in your life, it's more than just a fleeting curiosity or interest. Confusion, it's an opportunity for self-reflection and growth that forces you to pause and think about not just their activities, but also your personal journey. Your peace and self-respect are preserved. Instead, since your life has progressed to the point where her presence is no longer necessary, you've emerged as the kind of person that thrives in any situation is among the most important teachings. This situation serves as a reminder that we are valuable regardless of what other people think of us. Recognition. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that their return means they realized what they had lost in the end. But in truth, your value has always been, have you become stronger since they departed, whether they could see it or not? Have you created a life in accordance with your values, but more significantly, do you genuinely need this person in your life, or are you holding on to the memories of their previous significance in your life? What makes your decision to react coolly, sensibly, and with dignity is what sets you apart. Because development is more than simply a stage. It's a foundation and a reminder that you can stand tall, no matter who choose to do so. The Stoics advise us to focus on the things we can control, whether we choose to stay or return, which is the ideal opportunity to put that expertise to use. But you have no say in why they're returning, but you have the ability to prevent them from upsetting the peace you've worked so hard to attain. To expand on the knowledge you've acquired from this experience, whether it's the importance of boundaries. Think on the resilience lessons you've learned, such as the significance of emotional regulation, or the understanding that love without respect is never worth sacrificing your well-being, confidence, or capacity to. During those silent times, you not only bounced back, but also changed into someone who no longer needs other people's praise to be whole. Should keep in mind that when she returns, it's an opportunity to watch, think, and make a calm, deliberate choice, because your actions can no longer rule you, selecting the ways in which her presence will promote your development and peace. The most crucial question is whether it will make you revert to your previous habits or the person you've become. The principle of Stoicism is that you always have the last word and should base your choices on a position of power rather than want, and your development, growth, and keep your cool, keep your dignity, and let her come back if she wants to, but let your actions demonstrate that you've conquered the need to win her approval. Regardless of your decision, you've developed without her, and it's not merely for show, it's the cornerstone of the life you deserve. Let your decision show that you are clear about whether you want to move on or make amends. I appreciate your presence, wisdom, and unwavering self-respect, and sharing this voyage of introspection with me. If you found this video to be insightful, please leave a remark in the comments section. Which lesson best resonated with you? Have you ever been in? If you thought this video was interesting, let's talk about it in a similar situation. If helpful, please like it and share it with someone who might find the information useful. Message along with viewing the suggested movies on they are packed with knowledge that can help you comprehend strong alliances. Until the next time, remain calm, remain grounded, and don't undervalue your inner strength.